The Maya, a civilization that rose from the jungle and disappeared back into it, like a shadow fading in the sunlight. Their temples now lie buried beneath centuries of roots and vines, their cities swallowed by the earth as if the land itself wanted to hide them. But once, this vast expanse of rainforest trembled with life, with the rhythm of drums, the chanting of priests, and the pulse of an empire that measured time, ruled the stars, and communed with gods. They were builders of miracles, architects who raised stone pyramids that aligned perfectly with the heavens, mathematicians who understood the zero when most of the world still counted on fingers, astronomers who could predict eclipses with terrifying accuracy. Their calendar, intricate, cyclical, and divine, foretold the turning of ages. And then, silence. Sometime around the 9th century, the great cities of the classic Maya collapsed one by one. Tikal deserted, Copan abandoned, Palenque swallowed by the forest. No war left their scars. No invaders marched through their gates. It was as if an invisible hand had wiped them from history. What could cause an entire civilization to vanish? Not in battle, not in fire, but in silence. The chronicles carved in stone offer no clear answers. They speak of kings who lost favor with the gods, of crops that failed, of wars between city-states. Yet behind these fragments lies a deeper unease, the sense that the Maya knew their end was coming. Their final stelae, the carved stones of their cities, show scenes of chaos in the heavens, suns engulfed in flames, strange celestial visitors, and gods descending from the sky. Was it prophecy or memory? Even their sacred calendar, the long count, seems to stop abruptly, marking not merely the end of an age, but something greater, something final. Historians call it collapse. The Maya themselves might have called it transformation. But the question remains, where did they go? Did famine drive them into the mountains? Did drought turn their rivers to dust? Or did their priests, staring at the stars, see something so terrifying that they chose to walk away from the world they knew? The jungle keeps its secrets well. The stones remember, but they do not speak. Only the wind moves through the temples now, whispering in a language no one can quite translate. And sometimes, when the moon is full over the ruins of Tikal, locals swear they can hear chanting, the echo of a world that refused to die. What if the Maya never truly vanished, but simply crossed into another realm, one hidden just beyond our sight? Long before the first stones of Europe's cathedrals were laid, and while much of the old world still wandered in shadows, the Maya gazed into the heavens and understood them. They were not merely stargazers. They were engineers of the cosmos, weaving time, mathematics, and mythology into a single breathtaking system of knowledge. For the Maya, the sky was not a distant mystery. It was a map, a living script written by the gods themselves. Every flicker of Venus, every eclipse of the moon, every rising of the sun held a message. To them, the universe spoke, and they listened. Their astronomer priests, the Akin, observed the skies from towers that rose above the jungle canopy. Using nothing but sight, geometry, and memory, they calculated the orbits of planets with astonishing precision. At Chichen Itza, the Great Pyramid of El Castillo, also known as the Temple of Kukulkan, was designed as both a calendar and a celestial clock. Twice each year, during the equinoxes, sunlight slithers down its staircase, forming the illusion of a serpent of light descending the stone steps. The ancient priests believed it was Kukulkan himself, the feathered serpent god, returning to Earth to bless his people. This wasn't coincidence. It was cosmic design. Their mathematics were equally extraordinary. The Maya were among the first civilizations to conceive of the number zero, a concept Europe wouldn't grasp for nearly 1,000 years. They combined base 20 and base 5 systems, allowing them to build enormous calendars that charted not just years, but entire ages, cycles spanning thousands of years, tracking the births and deaths of worlds. The long count calendar was more than a tool for marking time. It was a prophecy machine. It spoke of cycles, biactons, in which civilizations rise and fall as the universe renews itself through destruction. For the Maya, history was not linear. It was circular, an eternal heartbeat of creation and annihilation. Their understanding of astronomy still stuns modern science. In the city of Köppen, they calculated the solar year to within 23 seconds of the modern figure. Their observations of Venus, the morning star, were so detailed that NASA's own data nearly matches the ancient glyphs found on Mayan stele. But for the Maya, these were not mere numbers. They believed the movements of planets and stars were reflections of divine will, omens shaping the fate of kings and nations. When Venus appeared in the dawn sky, it heralded war. When it vanished, peace could return. Every ruler sought to align his reign with the heavens, to prove that he ruled not just by strength, but by cosmic order. Cities were built to mirror constellations. Temples aligned perfectly with the solstice sun. Even their sacred ball courts were designed to symbolize the movement between worlds, the endless battle between light and darkness, life and death. To the Maya, architecture was worship. Every stone, every angle, every shadow was part of a greater rhythm, a harmony between heaven and earth. Their civilization was a reflection of the stars. And yet, the same sky that guided their glory would one day foretell their doom. The priests who once read the heavens for signs of renewal began to see something else. Alignments that spoke of endings, of fire in the sky, of gods who would return demanding balance. As their power reached its zenith, the heavens themselves began to whisper of collapse. The same stars that led them to greatness were now marking the time of their disappearance. Did the Maya uncover something in the heavens, something forbidden, that was never meant to be known by human eyes? There was a time when the world of the Maya pulsed with life, when jungle and city merged into one living organism, each heartbeat echoing through stone and sky. This was their golden age, an era of splendor, mystery, and ambition that turned the heart of Central America into a kingdom of gods and kings. From the 3rd to the 9th century, the Mayan world thrived like never before. Dozens of powerful city-states rose from the rainforest, Tikal, Palenque, Calakmul, Köppen, and Caracol. Each was a masterpiece of precision and vision, towering pyramids of limestone gleaming under the tropical sun, colossal palaces surrounded by plazas where the air shimmered with incense and ritual song. The people believed their cities were not built on the earth, but with it. Their temples climbed upward like mountains, bridging the mortal and the divine. In Tikal, pyramids stretched 70 meters toward the heavens, their summits piercing clouds heavy with rain. From the top, priests watched storms rolling across the jungle. The voice of the gods made thunder. Below, markets filled the plazas with color and chaos. Jade ornaments, obsidian blades, feathers brighter than fire. Traders carried cacao, salt, and honey along ancient causeways that connected one city to another, highways of stone cutting through the endless green. Palenque glittered like a jewel, its palaces carved with stories of kings who became gods. In the Temple of the Inscriptions, the tomb of King Pakal rests beneath layers of sacred art, a stone sarcophagus engraved with his journey into the underworld and rebirth among the stars. His image, reclining on the carved slab, seems to ride a celestial craft, a depiction so haunting that some see not symbolism, but technology. Everywhere, art and science intertwined. Murals glowed with pigments that have defied time, their blues and reds still vivid 1,000 years later. Sculptures captured gods with human faces, and humans with the features of gods. To be Mayan was to live between worlds, half of the jungle, half of the sky. Their society was layered, complex, yet fluid. At its peak, millions lived under the rule of divine kings, rulers who were both politicians and priests, mediators between mortals and the cosmic powers. Beneath them, scribes and astronomers kept the sacred calendar, while artisans, warriors, and farmers sustained the empire's pulse. Even the simplest laborer believed his work echoed the will of the heavens. Planting maize was not a chore, it was a prayer. And when night fell, the cities transformed. Torches flickered across stone plazas, drums echoed from distant temples, and the sky itself became a mirror. The Maya read the stars like a sacred book, their stories written in constellations and fire. To them, death was not an end, but a passage, a crossing into the divine layers of the cosmos. Every ritual, Every dance, every sacrifice was meant to sustain that fragile balance between heaven and earth. But beneath this brilliance, something else was stirring, something darker. The kings grew proud, the wars more frequent, the rituals more desperate. Monuments began to glorify blood more than balance. The gods, once appeased by incense and song, demanded more. Soon the altars ran red. Still, the Maya continued to build, to measure, to dream, as though by perfecting their world, they could outrun their fate. But the cracks had already begun to form. In their pursuit of divine order, they may have sown the seeds of their own destruction. The drums of the Golden Age thundered on, but a shadow had already begun to creep across the horizon. How could a civilization so advanced, so attuned to the cosmos, not see the darkness rising from within? The glory of the Maya shone like a second sun over the jungles, radiant, unyielding, eternal. But even the brightest light casts a shadow, and for the Maya that shadow began to grow. It started quietly. Crops failed in fields that had fed empires. Rivers ran thinner, then vanished. The air, once thick with the hum of insects and the chanting of priests, grew heavy with silence. Yet no one believed it could truly end. How could it? They had built their world on the rhythm of the heavens themselves. But as the 8th century dawned, that rhythm began to falter. The city-states, once united by trade and shared belief, turned upon one another. Tikal and Calakmul, two titans of the Mayan world, became locked in a brutal rivalry that would last generations. Their wars were not fought for land or gold, but for power, prestige, and divine favor. For each king, victory was not just survival, it was proof that the gods still walked beside him. Defeat meant not only disgrace but cosmic rejection. The stele, once carved with celebrations of peace and harvest, now told stories of captives, executions, and burning cities. Kings adorned themselves with jade and blood, wearing the bones of their enemies as sacred trophies. The rituals grew more elaborate, more violent. As the skies darkened and the omens turned grim, priests demanded greater sacrifices, to calm the gods, to restore balance, to beg for rain that never came. The jungle, indifferent and eternal, began to reclaim what had been stolen from it. Stone roads cracked beneath creeping vines. Entire villages disappeared overnight, swallowed by green silence. The sacred cenotes, deep wells of water and worship, became graveyards. Archaeologists would later find the bones of men, women, and children at their depths. The priests had thrown them there as offerings, hoping to summon mercy from gods who no longer answered. Yet the greatest danger was not drought or famine, it was pride. Each city still believed it could stand alone. Instead of unity, the Maya fractured into 1,000 warring fragments, each convinced the others were cursed. The kings fought not to save their people, but to preserve their names in stone. In Copan, the last rulers built massive monuments even as their population starved. They raised temples higher, carved their lineage deeper, and filled the night with desperate prayers. But the stars they once trusted now seemed to move differently. Eclipses came at unexpected times, comets streaked across the heavens, omens of disaster that no one could interpret anymore. The sacred order that had guided the Maya for centuries was unraveling. And then came abandonment, not destruction, but departure. Families fled their cities, moving toward the coasts, the highlands, the unknown. Entire capitals were left to rot under the weight of the forest. The final kings ruled over empty plazas and decaying temples, their words echoing through corridors where no one remained to listen. The fall of the Maya was not a single event. It was a slow dying, stretched across centuries. A civilization that once charted the stars now struggled to understand its own end. And perhaps, in their despair, they began to look upward again, not for guidance, but for deliverance. Because as the fires of war burned and the rains refused to fall, the heavens themselves seemed to tremble. Strange lights appeared above the temples. The night sky, once a map of divine order, began to show patterns no priest had ever seen before. It was as if the gods had turned their gaze away, or worse, had returned to claim what was theirs. The Maya had mastered time itself. But could they sense that theirs was running out? Or did they know something even more terrifying, that their end was not a failure, but a prophecy fulfilled? For centuries, the Maya believed their world existed in perfect balance, a harmony between the heavens, the earth, and the sacred breath of the gods. But when that balance began to crumble, nature itself became their greatest enemy. The rain, once generous and rhythmic, ceased to fall. Clouds drifted over the jungle but gave no water. The rivers that had nourished the crops dried into cracked veins across the land. Wells turned to dust. The sacred maize, the very flesh of humankind, as the Maya believed, withered under a merciless sun. It was no mere drought. It was an apocalypse written in the language of nature. Modern science now confirms what the Maya priests once feared. A series of catastrophic droughts struck Mesoamerica between the 8th and 10th centuries, each one worse than the last. Cores of ancient lake sediment revealed decades where rain nearly vanished, leaving behind layers of dust instead of silt. For a people who lived by the cycles of the heavens, this was not a meteorological event, it was divine punishment. As famine spread, desperation followed. The jungles thinned as entire forests were cut down to feed fires and build more temples in frantic devotion. Without trees, the soil eroded, the rivers turned brown, and the air grew hotter still. In trying to appease the gods, the Maya had accelerated their own destruction. The earth beneath them began to shift. Some researchers suggest that massive volcanic activity shook the region. Ash falling over villages like black snow, dimming the sun for weeks. Others believe earthquakes fractured their cities, turning temples into tombs. The ground itself, it seemed, rejected its builders. And yet, the Maya recorded it all. In their carvings, they depicted fire raining from the sky, floods that swallowed entire towns, and mountains that screamed. Were these mere metaphors for environmental collapse, or descriptions of real cataclysms witnessed by terrified eyes? At Karakol and Köpen, excavations show signs of sudden abandonment, half-carved stele, unfinished temples, and hastily buried treasures. It was as though people fled in a single day, never to return. In some cities, skeletons were found lying in doorways, clutching charms and amulets, faces frozen in prayer. Even the priests, once revered as interpreters of the cosmos, began to lose faith. Their calendars no longer aligned with the sky. Their predictions failed. The rituals grew darker, the offerings greater. In the final years, human sacrifices reached their peak. Children and warriors alike thrown into sacred wells, their blood offered to the gods of rain and corn. But still, the skies remained silent. It is possible and chilling that the Maya realized too late that their gods were not angry. They were gone. The climate shifted. The forests died. The empire cracked from within. Yet even this explanation, grounded in science and soil, feels incomplete. Because how could an entire civilization, millions of people spread across hundreds of cities, simply vanish all at once, leaving no trace of mass graves, no trails of migration, no final kingdom to inherit the fallen? Something else was at work. Something beyond drought, beyond famine, beyond the comprehension of both priest and peasant. Perhaps the Maya understood that the disasters were not random, that the heavens themselves were realigning. The balance of the cosmos was breaking. And as lightning burned across the horizon and the temples of Tikal stood silent under blackened skies, one thought must have echoed in every trembling heart. What if the gods had not forsaken them, but were preparing to return? Were the droughts and disasters of the Maya world mere acts of nature, or the first signs of something cosmic, something written long ago in their sacred calendar? When the earth failed them, the Maya looked upward, to the stars, to the burning eyes of the gods who had always guided their fate. But what they saw may have terrified them. Across their cities, astronomer priests began recording strange anomalies in the heavens. Celestial alignments that had once followed predictable cycles now seemed to shift. Eclipses occurred out of season. The planet Venus, sacred to war and rebirth, appeared to flicker and change in brightness. Even the moon's reflection was said to tremble in the rivers. To the Maya, this was not coincidence. It was a sign that the order of the universe was collapsing. They had always believed their gods descended from the stars, that humanity itself was shaped from divine matter, sculpted by cosmic hands. Their myths tell of beings who came from the sky, bringing light, fire, and knowledge. The Popol Vuh, their sacred book, speaks of creators who measured the four corners of the world before birthing humankind from maize and starlight. If the sky itself was breaking, it meant the gods were stirring once again. And then came the lights. Legends from the highlands speak of fiery serpents crossing the night sky, burning trails that hissed as they vanished beyond the horizon. Could they have been comets, meteor storms, or something else entirely? Ancient carvings in Yucatan depict winged discs hovering above the pyramids, surrounded by priests offering blood to the heavens. Some modern researchers see in them echoes of craft, not myth but machinery. The Maya saw the sun as the lifeblood of the cosmos, yet feared its wrath. Some glyphs describe a time when the sun screamed and the earth grew red, a phrase that some now interpret as a solar flare, a cosmic storm that scorched their lands and poisoned their skies. Even more curious are the strange magnetic deposits found near several ruins, thin layers of iron fused into the stone, as if the temples had been briefly subjected to intense bursts of radiation or heat. Could this be evidence of natural solar events, or something beyond our current understanding? Across the centuries, whispers persist of sky beings descending in radiant forms, teaching the Maya the secrets of astronomy, architecture, and mathematics, then vanishing as mysteriously as they came. Were these gods, angels, or visitors from the stars, as some daring theorists suggest, the same entities described in Sumerian, Egyptian, and Dogon traditions? Carl Sagan himself once speculated that early civilizations might have encountered travelers from other worlds, a fleeting contact, misunderstood and mythologized. If that were true, the Maya would have been the perfect students. Precise, observant, deeply spiritual. But perhaps they learned too much. What if their sudden disappearance was not a collapse, but a departure? Some believe the Maya may have been warned or even invited to leave the Earth behind. Their final calendars, carved with strange astronomical data and prophetic imagery, might not mark the end of time, but the moment of transition. And in their myths, the clues are everywhere. Stories of portals opening in the mountains, of stairways of light descending from the sky, of kings who rose into the heavens and became stars. To the modern mind, these are legends, but to the Maya, they were history. Perhaps the droughts and wars were merely the symptoms of something greater, a celestial event that altered the earth itself. An alignment, a burst, a visitation. When the last kings looked to the night sky and saw it burning, they may have realized what was coming. Not destruction, but transformation. Their world was ending, but another, far beyond the stars, was calling. Maybe the Maya didn't die beneath the weight of their gods, but ascended to join them. Were the heavens merely spectators to the Maya's fall, or the architects of their fate? Centuries after their disappearance, the jungle still guards the bones of the Maya. Not just their temples and cities, but their words, etched in stone and whispering across time. Each discovery, each excavation, feels like a conversation with ghosts. But what these ghosts are trying to say remains unsettling. When the first explorers cut their way through the vines of the Yucatan in the 19th century, they found cities that seemed impossibly sophisticated for their age. Towering pyramids swallowed by vegetation, murals that still gleamed with color, and glyphs, thousands of them, carved into walls, staircases, and altars. It was a script so intricate that no one could read it for centuries. Some thought it was pure decoration. Others believed it contained the story of the Maya's fall. It wasn't until the 20th century that linguists began to decode the glyphs, and what they found was astonishing. The stones spoke of kings, dynasties, and wars, but also of the cosmos, cycles of time, and messages from the heavens. In the temples of Palenque, inscriptions describe celestial visitors descending in luminous chariots. The sarcophagus lid of King Pacal, discovered in 1952, shows the ruler lying within a machine-like structure, surrounded by flames and stars, his body angled upward, as though ascending into the sky. Some archaeologists see it as pure symbolism. Others, including ancient astronaut theorists, see something far more literal. At Köppen, beneath layers of soil, archaeologists uncovered the hieroglyphic stairway, the longest known Mayan text, carved into 2,200 individual stones. It records centuries of royal history, but at its end, the tone shifts. It speaks of days of darkness, the fire from the sky, and the gods returning to measure mankind. Was it poetry, prophecy, or the record of a cataclysm witnessed by the final generations of the Maya? Even stranger are the physical clues. Beneath Tikal, researchers have found networks of tunnels, some natural, others clearly engineered. They connect temples across vast distances, their walls coated in minerals that glow faintly under certain light frequencies. Were they ritual passages, water channels, or something else entirely? Perhaps conduits of energy, designed with knowledge we no longer possess? Then there are the anomalies. Magnetic distortions surrounding temple pyramids, residual energy readings in limestone walls, and carvings of figures wearing what look like helmets and breathing apparatus. To skeptics, these are coincidences or misinterpretations. To others, they are hints of an advanced science, one that blurred the boundary between the spiritual and the technological. The Temple of the Inscriptions in Palenque holds perhaps the most haunting artifact, the tomb of Pakal the Great. On its walls are glyphs that trace the path of his soul not into the underworld, as was typical, but to the heart of the heavens. The Mayan phrase used, Akbih, he enters the road, is found nowhere else in this context. Was it metaphor, or the memory of a journey beyond the stars? Modern LiDAR scans have revealed hundreds of previously unknown Mayan cities buried beneath the forest canopy. Entire metropolises hidden from human eyes for over 1,000 years. Roads, canals, fortresses, temples, all meticulously aligned with celestial patterns. But the strangest discovery came from one such site deep in Guatemala, a circular complex that perfectly mirrors the Pleiades star cluster. The architecture wasn't accidental, it was intentional. The question is why? In a recently deciphered inscription from Yaxchilan, archaeologists found reference to an event called the Descent of the Lords of Light. The date corresponds roughly to the 9th century, the very period of the Maya collapse. The text describes a soundless fire in the sky, as bright as the sun, and beings who walked in the air before vanishing into the door of night. Coincidence? Myth? Or testimony? Science struggles to explain it. Faith calls it divine. But in the silent corridors of these ancient ruins, one feels the presence of something far older, knowledge that slipped through the fingers of time itself. The stones of the Maya do not lie. They do not exaggerate. They remember. And if their final carvings truly tell the story of what happened, then perhaps the Maya didn't merely vanish. Perhaps they followed the ones who came from the sky. Their temples point upward for a reason. The answers they sought were never buried in the earth, but waiting above. Were the Mayan inscriptions warnings from the past, or invitations for us to follow the same path beyond the stars? The Maya did not fear time. They mastered it. To them, time was alive, breathing, pulsing, spiraling in endless cycles of creation and destruction. Every ending was a beginning reborn. Every death, a seed for new life. Yet even in their intricate vision of eternity, there was one date that cast a shadow across their history. The day when the fifth sun would die. According to the Chilambalam, the sacred prophetic texts of the Yucatan, the world had ended not once but 4 times before. Each era, each sun, was destroyed in a different way, first by jaguars, then by hurricanes, fire, and flood. Humanity was born and reborn, always watched, always judged by the gods. The current age, the fifth sun, was the age of maize, the era of man, and the Maya believed it too would end in fire. Their priests wrote of Katuns, cycles of 20 years, and Baktuns, cosmic periods stretching across millennia. When the final glyph of the 13th Baktun was carved, it marked a moment unlike any other. Not a random date, but a cosmic reset. December 21st, 2012. To modern minds, it became a symbol of apocalypse, the end of the world. But to the Maya, it was never about annihilation. It was about transformation. Still, their prophecies carried an eerie weight. They spoke of great trembling, fire from the heavens, the earth turning upon itself. They warned of rulers who would lose faith, of cities consumed by hunger, of the return of the gods who had once shaped mankind. In the books of the Jaguar priests, one chilling phrase appears again and again. The gods will return through the sky. Their voices will shake the earth. These were not vague omens. They were countdowns, precise mathematical predictions tied to celestial alignments. At the moment the 13th Bacton closed, the sun would align with the center of the Milky Way, crossing the dark rift, a region the Maya called Xibalba B, the road to the underworld. To them, this was no accident. It was a cosmic gateway. What awaited on the other side, rebirth or ruin, depended on whether humanity still honored the balance between heaven and earth. But what if that moment, the one the world fixated on in 2012, was not the beginning of the end, but the continuation of an older prophecy? The Maya never said the world would end in a single day. They said the fifth sun would fade, slowly, imperceptibly, until the light was gone. And now, centuries after their disappearance, the signs they spoke of seem to echo through our own time. The skies grow hotter, storms stronger, fires more violent. The very climate that once betrayed them now turns upon us. Their prophecies may not have been warnings of distant fate, but messages to a future humanity destined to repeat their mistakes. Yet some scholars and mystics believe the Maya were not warning us of destruction at all, but revealing a secret of transcendence. In their temples, carvings show kings and priests entering beams of light, ascending into celestial gateways, reborn among the stars. Could it be that the end the Maya foresaw was not of the earth, but of the human condition itself? Their myths tell of a time when the gods will return not as destroyers, but as guides, to awaken what has slept within us since the dawn of creation. A transformation, not an extinction. But still, there lingers a darker interpretation, one that chills the blood. What if the gods the Maya awaited were not divine at all, but something else entirely? Beings who had been here before, beings who promised to come back. The priests may have known this. They may have seen the same fiery serpents in the sky that their ancestors once witnessed. They may have realized that every cycle, every Bacton, ends not in chance but in visitation. Their final message, carved in glyphs and hidden in jungle ruins, is simple yet haunting. The cycle will end where it began. The gods shall descend once more. Perhaps they didn't vanish because they were destroyed, but because their prophecy had been fulfilled. If time truly moves in cycles, then when the next great turning comes, will we face the same fate the Maya once did? Or will we finally understand what their prophecies were trying to tell us? History remembers the Maya as an ancient civilization that simply disappeared. But what if that's not the truth? What if their disappearance wasn't a mystery at all, but a cover-up? For decades, whispers have circulated among explorers, archaeologists, and even government researchers, stories of forbidden discoveries in the jungles of Guatemala and the Yucatan, entire ruins hidden from public maps, stairways sealed beneath stone, tunnels that hum faintly, as if carrying a current beneath the earth. Some claim that those who've entered them have never returned. In 1929, the British explorer Colonel Percy Fawcett wrote of a lost Mayan city that emitted a strange, low vibration, a hum that made compasses spin and lanterns flicker. His final expedition vanished. No trace was ever found. In the 1970s, satellite scans of Central America revealed hundreds of unexplored sites, yet several were quietly classified, their exact coordinates removed from all public archives. Officials blamed environmental protection. Others whispered of something deeper, something the world was not ready to know. And then there are the modern reports from military pilots and scientists stationed near ancient ruins. Accounts of strange lights hovering over archaeological zones and signals detected coming from beneath temple foundations. Radio frequencies pulsing at mathematical intervals, repeating every 52 seconds, like a heartbeat. The number 52 was sacred to the Maya. It marked the completion of their calendar round, the fusion of the cycles of the Sun and Venus. Could the transmissions be mere coincidence? Or are we hearing the echo of something ancient still alive beneath the jungle floor? According to one persistent legend, deep within the Guatemalan highlands lies Temple Zero, a site said to be older than any known Mayan city. The entrance is supposedly guarded by a natural sinkhole, surrounded by magnetic anomalies. Locals refuse to approach it. They say lights rise from it at night, spheres of pale fire that drift silently into the forest canopy. The few who ventured close describe a smell of ozone and the sense of being watched by something vast and intelligent. In 2003, an independent archaeological team reportedly discovered a chamber beneath a pyramid at Calakmul. Inside were glyphs unlike any seen before, spirals and symbols resembling constellations. The chamber was sealed soon after, and the findings were never published. The official explanation? Structural instability. But whispers persist that the team found a device, a disc of obsidian and quartz, engraved with a map of the stars, and something that didn't belong there. NASA's own records contain curious anomalies, too. In 2012, the year the Mayan calendar cycle ended, a sudden burst of high-energy radiation was recorded near the region of the Yucatan Peninsula. It lasted only minutes, but it originated not from the sun, but from the Earth itself. Could something beneath those ruins still be active? Could the Maya have harnessed forces we're only beginning to rediscover? Some conspiracy theorists go even further. They claim the U.S. government and private research groups have already uncovered advanced relics, crystalline power systems, magnetic spheres, and metallic artifacts that defy carbon dating. According to leaked reports, a joint expedition between American and Mexican agencies in 1997 unearthed a perfectly preserved skeleton, over 7 feet tall, wearing a jade mask with symbols matching no known language. The remains were quietly relocated, the site declared off-limits. And then there are the rumors about the Codex of Light, a lost Mayan manuscript allegedly found in the 1960s, detailing the path of ascension and the return of the Sky Lords. Only fragments are said to survive, locked away in a private European collection. If it exists, it could be the missing link, the final testimony of a civilization that transcended death itself. But perhaps the most chilling theory of all comes from within the Maya's own prophecies, that they never vanished, that they withdrew underground, into vast caverns and subterranean cities that connect to sacred cenotes, natural wells leading deep into the earth. Local myths speak of glowing halls where the air hums with energy, where stone becomes light, and the people of the sun still breathe. If true, it would mean the Maya did not collapse. They moved, not into the heavens, not into legend, but into the earth's hidden veins, waiting, watching, preserving knowledge until the next turning of the great cycle. Even today, some say the government knows, that they've sealed those entrances, disguised them as archaeological zones, and erased the evidence. Because if the world ever learned that a civilization could master cosmic knowledge, transcend the fall of empires, and still exist beneath our feet, everything we know about history, power, and humanity itself would change forever. Maybe the Maya didn't vanish. Maybe they were the first to awaken. If the truth about the Maya is buried, not lost, then who is keeping it hidden? And what are they protecting us from, or preparing us for? Deep within the jungles of Guatemala, the ruins of the Maya still hum with a strange electricity. The air there feels alive, heavy with memory, as if the stones themselves are waiting for something. Perhaps they are, because for the Maya nothing ever truly ended. Not their time, not their gods, not their story. The jungle took their cities, yes, but it preserved them too. Beneath the roots and vines lie corridors that have never seen the light of the modern sun. Sealed tunnels filled with glyphs that speak not of death, but of return. One inscription, found near the ruins of Dos Pilas, reads, "We entered the mouth of the earth to await the new dawn." It is a phrase both haunting and hopeful. Did they flee, hide, or did they prepare for a day when they would rise again, when the stars once more aligned with their sacred calendars? Recent LiDAR scans have uncovered what appear to be vast subterranean chambers stretching beneath several Mayan cities. networks so extensive they make the largest known pyramids seem like mere doorways. These tunnels connect cenotes, underground rivers, and temples with uncanny precision. Scientists claim they are natural formations, but locals tell a different story. They call them the breathing roads, paths through which the souls of the Maya still travel, waiting for the fifth sun to awaken once more. There are those who believe that the Maya never disappeared, they transcended. They learned something hidden in the movement of the cosmos, something that allowed them to leave the world we know and pass into another layer of existence. Some ancient murals show figures dissolving into beams of light, rising through whirlpools of stars. The priests called it the path of feathered light, the road back to the gods. And yet, traces of their blood still flow through the people of modern Mesoamerica. Millions of Maya descendants live today. Farmers, weavers, storytellers, carrying language, symbols, and rituals older than history itself. They are not the ruins of a lost people. They are the living fragments of a civilization that refused to die. In their festivals, in their music, in the sacred fire ceremonies that still burn under midnight skies, they whisper the same word their ancestors did at the turning of each age. Sigilul, the life force that connects all beings to the cosmos. Perhaps that is the secret the Maya tried to protect. Not an empire, not power, but a knowledge of unity. A truth that the divine and the human, the earth and the stars, are all part of one great design. And when humanity forgets this balance, the cycle turns again, bringing both destruction and renewal. So where did the Maya go? Maybe nowhere, maybe everywhere, maybe into the hidden dimensions that lie between worlds, the same invisible spaces their astronomers once mapped in the heavens. Or maybe they simply stepped deeper into the jungle, into the heartbeat of the earth itself, knowing one day humanity would come searching for them once more. And when that day comes, when the stars align as they did before, when the next great cycle begins, perhaps the Maya will rise again, not from ruins but from memory. Their temples will awaken, their gods will speak, and the jungle will fall silent to listen, because the Maya never truly vanished. They were never lost. They were waiting for the next sun to rise. And when it does, will we be ready to meet the ones who walked away from time itself? Or will we, like them, be forced to vanish to begin again, somewhere beyond the stars?